Hello, this is Dalamir and welcome to another repair video. In this one, we're going back to this iPhone XR. I already have the screen out. What we're focusing on is this back glass we're going to be doing a replacement on. Now, for prepping this, we got to put some material across this. I usually use static tape. And the reason why I'm using this particular tape is because it doesn't leave any residue behind. There we are. Make sure that it's covering those good and proper like. Okay, let's go over to the machine. Now, if you guys are wanting to do this yourself, there are certain things that you're going to need. Here's my machine here. I've got a ReFox, and that is an LM80B. I think it is the 5-watt laser version. But there's some tools that you always need for this. And here's what I'm usually using. I don't use the hammer often, but it's there. And there's my whole setup. I clamp this clamp down to the desk itself, but it does have options, as you can see from the sides, where you can actually just bolt it directly to your desk, your work surface. I usually put it right here. Put that clamp down, I clamp it on down. These are anti-cut gloves. You're going to have glass everywhere, so you really do need these. They're getting a little bit dirty, so eventually I'm going to have to get some replacements. Safety glasses are an absolute must. And what I use a lot for the majority of my work is this number 17 chisel tip razor blade. Right there you've got a glass breaker. That gets used a lot around the camera lens. And this is just a really tiny jewel flathead screwdriver, slot screwdriver, whatever you call it. That's pretty much all I use. So let's get this machine turned on and we'll go from there. And now there is one last thing that I haven't mentioned that I do use a lot on, and it's this ventilation unit. It's an exhaust for a washroom, that's all it is, and it's not even a big one. And I've got that out to a tube that goes to a window. For this bit here, but you gotta click on administrator, log in, administrator, and then the password's just 111111, so that's 6 ones. Log in, then you can actually access what's going on in here. I'm gonna go up to open, or you can go file, open, and what I'm looking for is drawing for iPhones, and I'm going to go down, keep scrolling until I find the XR, and it's not XR1, you need XR2. So there's XR2 that's back. So that's it right there. We're going to take her phone, put that in there. Now we're going to take off her cap, turn on the laser, and focus. Okay, now on the keyboard, if I press F1, it's going to show where that laser is currently. It's not where I want it to be right now, so I'm going to have to make some adjustments to get it to properly where. So I'm going to move this over here. Press F1 on the keyboard again, and that's a lot closer. So let's just get this lined up as best I can. You can also use the arrow keys on the keyboard to move it. Now if that interval isn't working, and it's not working for me, I'm going to increase it to 0.1, so I just want select, change it to 0.1, and we're going to try this again. I think that's pretty much bang on. I'm going to just move it a hair up more. What I'm going to do now, I don't bother with the door. What I do instead of relying on that, so I take that ventilation fan, throw that in place, put this little screen right here to block any of the air from coming out as close as possible, and then I press F2 on the keyboard to get that started. And I don't recommend looking at this if you're doing this in person. Alright, the phone is all ready, so as you can see there, quite a noticeable difference. You can actually see the glue. Now this right here, yeah, 3M, that's an N95 mask. You might not need it. I tend to use it. It's just because I really don't like the dust, and I do this way too much, this job, to trust getting this stuff in my lungs, and I do not want to take any chances. You're going to get glass everywhere, so wherever you do this, make sure it's not carpet. Here's a chisel bit. Just lock this down. There's one more thing I like to use. That's a heat gun. Where are we going to start? Is there somewhere we can get in? Right there. Sometimes you got to go and use this little guy right off the bat to get it started. It is on a spring. But I don't think we're going to need it in this occasion. I'm just going to speed this up as you go, and if there's any areas that I think that you guys might benefit from, I will slow down the video. Okay, that's initially what all I can get off. Now you're going to notice there's all this dust all over here. That's actually burnt. That's all burnt paint. You really don't want to breathe that in. So that's why I got that mask on. And I just bring this up close, my vent, and I blow that on in there. But there's also some areas I want to point out that you want to really be careful of. Right here, right there, at the very top of the phone, you see there you got your camera, there is a ribbon cable. You want to be careful about that. At the very bottom, there's also ribbon cables. If you cut those, you need to replace, and it's a terrible job, you'll need to replace the charge port. So that's why I didn't touch most of it. You'll notice that it didn't burn this area. That's because it's a sensitive area and it's been left out. So the only way to easily get this out is to use a heat gun. So let's heat that up. Let's put our clamp down on the side. Let's get this heated. There we go, it's nice and warm. You don't need to leave the heat on for very long. As you're working, you're just levering up to see how long it takes. Same thing along here. So remember, this is where all the cables are, at the bottom of the phone. Be careful. See, there's another ribbon cable right there. There's a bit of a ribbon cable. You see that ribbon cable right there? I've never cut them on an XR before, but I have cut through one, I think, on an iPhone 12 that I had been working on, and that was not pleasant. We got to get that bit out with some heat as well. I'm just putting it up to my hand so I can feel it against the glove. The moment that it starts to feel hot, then I take it away and put it onto the phone. So it's only sitting there for about 5 to 10 seconds at most. No more than 10 seconds, even that's a bit much. And it comes off pretty easily. Now this bit is a little bit harder, and we're going to get back to this camera shortly. There, you're just putting it underneath there and you're using the glass to lever it while you have that heat gun on it. And with the XR, you don't have to worry about MagSafe. I don't have the clamp on. There we go, clamp's engaged. I don't usually try to save this little plastic thing underneath there. It usually ends up tearing in the end, and there's just nothing really you can do about it. Yeah, see? Tore. So at this point, I think I'm pretty much just peeling this up. There we have it. Be very careful around that coil. If you stab it, that coil will be damaged and it will no longer work for wireless charging. It does have a plastic coating on it, so if you hit it lightly, you'll be okay. But yeah, just be careful. Look at that. We've only been at it for about 14 minutes, maybe, so far, and finally down to just the camera. If you put it like this, and you use that against the lens like there, you will shatter the lens. It will crack, even though you don't have direct contact, so don't do that. It's happened to me exactly once, and I learned my lesson. So you're just putting down as many of these as you can. That should be fine. Let's blow some dust out of the way. Get all that glass shards. You're blowing it towards, away from yourself. You don't want this line all over you. Now there's also right here, can't really see it that well, but right here there is a little tiny metal mesh that is for It's for a microphone, for the back microphone. Be careful around it, you don't want to lose that. So I'm just taking the screwdriver and I'm just pushing on the glass as I go. Sometimes this doesn't work and you need to use a hammer against the back, and you're just giving it really light taps. I might end up doing that a little bit in here, but usually it comes out pretty easily. I'm just taking my thumb, pushing it against the little shards of glass that I've busted up. So yeah, that last bit there, I'm gonna have to use either the hammer or I'll have to get a blade under. I'm gonna try a blade first. Just loosen the glue up around that lens. There isn't any cables really around the lens there. We've got a piece of steel plating that goes around the camera. I think that might have been enough. I really do try to avoid using a hammer to tap away the glass. That came apart. That came clean real nice and easy. Usually this takes longer. We're at 17 minutes, almost 18. And I'm pretty much done this part. So there's usually a little bit of stuff around here that you want to just scrape away, that the laser it just won't get. You want to just run your blade around the edge underneath the camera. There's about a 2 millimeter gap that goes directly underneath, as you can see, all the way around. You just got to make sure that all the glass has been cleaned out from underneath that. I think we're done. What I like to do finally, it's like I take the screwdriver and I just see whether or not there's any left over. You can see there is a little bit of glass left over around the edges here. You gotta get all that glass out if you want your new back glass to sit nicely. If there's any glass left, it will not go on smoothly and the new glass will actually break. Eventually, the new glass will break if there's any shards left over. So it's essential that you find every single last little shard, and the ones that are most likely to remain are the ones that are around the edges. So like right there, barely see it. I'm actually going to try for a blade there. Also, I have found quite often, no matter how hard you try, you might nick, so far I haven't on this occasion, but you might nick that side frame. It's unfortunate, but it does happen. Okay, well, if that has last little bits, we're going to stick this back underneath the laser again, and we're going to laser away all that glue, all that stuff there. We're going to put like 3, 4, maybe even 5 passes before this is truly all off of there. So let's get it back underneath the laser and see how this goes. Now first we're just going to check to make sure everything's still lined up. Perfect, it is. Seen how it's peeled away? At this point in time, I like to change the blade out. And I use another one that is as sharp as possible. So I prefer to use a new one. Fine. You see how easy that? Look at that. All that glued. Laser does wonders. You saw how many times I had to go over this over and over and over again. There's a little bit of dust on there. Let's just get rid of that. Now you got a little bit right there that's stuck. And a little bit here that's stuck. Be careful, the blade is super sharp now. Remember, right there's all your cables. Now this part's really easy. Just pushing along there and along here. Now on this stage, there is a possibility that you may end up nicking the frame. Try really hard not to, for obvious reasons. And it doesn't look as pretty of a job if you nick the frame, but it's, again, nobody's perfect. It can happen. Now you're just trying to get off the large stuff at the moment. You're gonna have to use a screwdriver to get the rest off. And around here, it's better to flip the blade upside down so you have the ledge on the bottom. because otherwise you're going to dig into the plastic around this area a lot. So just trying to get underneath there. There you go. And even in these spots, I probably will end up using the screwdriver more than anything else. Mostly because of just how close I am to that. Yeah, see, I'm getting worried. So I'm not going to touch that. So let's go over to here next. I'm just going to sneak up on this. Seems to be a small amount of glass still here. Just a tiny speck. Let's get that out. Now remember where we are. We're near that cable. Gotta really stress it. You gotta be careful around those. You do not want to add an extra 45 minutes to this repair. There you go. Look how easy that came off. I didn't used to use blade in that section at all. Just going around to clean up those edges. Now you notice this whole section here, I completely avoided with the blade. And I'm putting my pointer finger and I'm pushing and against the frame of the phone. And then scraping along here to get that glue out. It comes away relatively easily, but sometimes it can be pretty stuck down there. All done. Now there is one last thing that I like to do with the phone, especially when you've got these back here, is I tip it upside down and I give it a little bit of a shake. Now with this particular phone it's not such a big deal, but with the iPhone 11 especially and up, with the MagSafe, glass gets trapped behind that wireless charger. We're done. We're actually done at this point. I will go over to my desk now and I'll clean that whole thing up with a few Q-tips and some isopropyl alcohol. Just doing a last check, making sure it looks like it is. Alright, I'm going to remove this. Just look how dirty that is. That's why I put that on there. It really saves you a lot of time. So at this point, it is ready to put that front screen back on, because we're going to be going on to the last step, which is cleaning the back and then finally putting the glue on and the back glass on. Here we are. If it doesn't sit flush, you might want to check to see if there's maybe a piece of glass or something in your, or even a piece of plastic maybe stuck on your adhesive, or the new screen adhesive. There we have it. Grab a bunch of these creatures. I'll even use this one initially that we were using earlier. So all I'm doing is just going over this real quick for the start. It's going to come up really black on the Q-tip. We're doing this because if you don't, the glue isn't going to stick all that well. You want your glue to stick. Didn't use as many cotton swabs as I thought I was going to use. Now you don't really need to use this particular glue, but I find this particular glue to be pretty useful. It works great. Goes on pretty clean. You can use other glues, such as this right here. That works pretty darn good. It's just E8000. I have also used glues like B7000 in the past, and it has done pretty good. But the B7000, I think is what it was, B7000, yeah, it dries really, really fast, way faster than you can manage. I in the past have put far more than I should have, and you end up flooding the inside with glue. It's not a terrible amount, but it's enough to be annoying for anybody that wants to work on the phone next. And phones that I've been working on, that I've replaced the back on, it's not terrible, but it does make it a little bit more difficult to work on. So I'm just putting a light layer, because there's areas you can see around here and here and there, the glue will seep through, and then down below at the edge. But, I try to follow the places where the glue went before. And I mean, if you don't get a good enough cover in the first place, you're going to end up with another broken back glass. I mean, it'll break from just about any fall if you don't have enough glue coverage. As weird as that sounds, because you know, there's a pocket. Now you do want to keep the glue away from this area right here, because if it seeps into the speaker, not the speaker, the microphone there, you're going to be in pretty big trouble. Because once that glue gets in there, the only way that you're going to fix it is by replacing it. It hasn't happened to me yet, and I don't want it to ever happen in the first place, so let's make sure it doesn't. Now you're just going to put a very thin layer all around the edge. There we are. Let's put this on now. So all I'm doing right now is I'm just pressing around to make sure that the glue is adhering properly all the way around. There we go. At that point, I'm going to take this and put this over top. This is a clamp that I got from ReFox. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to tape this down so that it's not going all over the place. This makes life a little easier for me. Should fit in there. And I like to just make sure it's well centered. You're not going to be able to see this, but I am looking from the side. And I'm just centering it up in that clamp. And then once you get that, you're just going to put it finger tight. So you screw it down. It's still very easy to turn, and now it's no longer. So a few little, there, right there, you see? If I go any further, there's a possibility that I could damage the screen. So that's as far as you go. Well, it's the next day, and it's definitely dry by now. You don't need to leave it this long. You can just leave it for about 15-20 minutes to dry for that back glass. But I got busy. When it goes this long, it's actually really well cured. I do find it's actually easier to get the glue off, the excess glue, when it has dried for only about 15-20 minutes. It's really properly well set when it's come to this point. So really, for the most part, you can just peel it away with your thumb, and it comes right off. Okay, that bit is all done. So this next part, I do like to use a glove, but I mean, if you're not using 99.9% alcohol, that's what I'm using, you don't need to use a glove. I just find this a lot less painful. So all I do is I just take a piece of paper towel. I'm going to put some alcohol on this. I'm just getting rid of all the glue fingerprints that were left behind there. Once that's done, just buff the remaining alcohol off. Now the back part, sometimes this doesn't always work the best. Initially, especially if you've only left it for 15 minutes to dry, it just leaves streaks everywhere. So you gotta be like super careful about how you do it. But since we've left it for such a long time in the press, it's gonna have cleaned up a lot better. That's it. That is how you do an iPhone XR back glass replacement. It's still a little bit foggy back there, but that's just oil from my hand. I might give it another buff. And that's it. Thank you guys all for watching. If you liked the video, please do leave a like. And if you want to see more of my stuff, subscribe. See you guys all in another video. Bye-bye.